Welcome to the Voice of Business podcast. We're here once again at Bennett's Furniture and Mattresses. Big thanks to this beautiful location for us and Odigski Media for producing this podcast for us. My guest today, Warden Bonnie Clark. So you're the Deputy Mayor of Otonabee South Monaghan Township. You're the Warden of Peterborough County and the Vice Chair of the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. Feel like you've got a bit of a well-rounded perspective on municipal issues. You've got severances and sidewalks on one side of things and internet strategy and housing strategy on another side. What are the big pressing issues right now for municipalities?
Well, I think the most pressing issue is the cost of infrastructure. And we, of course, had downloaded previously roads and bridges. It's the monies to be able to maintain and replace those. There's also housing, and that takes money as well. Yeah. The province has downloaded a lot of the health care to municipalities. We're now in the health care business, and our tax base remains the same.
Yeah.
So it is a challenge.
Yeah. And when you talk about infrastructure, what are some of the big needs right now in Peterborough County?
Well, I would say roads and bridges. Yeah. We are finishing one of the biggest projects this fall, and that's the James Gifford Causeway. Yeah. And that cost millions of dollars, our largest project. Certainly there's a number of bridges throughout, but again, if we don't have the housing, then that affects the labor force. It's just a spin-off of everything. And as I say, we only have one taxpayer. Yeah. And with inflation, these projects are all coming in at significant dollars and an increase.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You look at the cost of projects from 15, 20 years ago, municipal projects, and the price you pay now. It's a difficult pill to swallow on that. And one of the things I've been hearing from a number of municipalities, and there's a resolution from Peterborough County as well, around trying to get a new deal with the province. Because as you said, you're doing all these different things. You're in the healthcare sphere. The bread and butter of a municipality is those sidewalks. It's the snow plowing. It's those kinds of things. But you're recruiting doctors. You're doing dealing with mental health and senior care and all these kinds of things. What is it that you're hoping to get out of a new deal, and why is it that it's an issue, for property taxes to be paying for all these things? If we're all paying into taxes in different ways, what's the objective with this?
Well, I think the difference is in rural Ontario, our tax base is certainly lower than if you go to the GTA. Yeah. However, we have miles and miles of roads. We certainly have the migration from the cities here, and therefore health care is needed for those individuals. We certainly pay for our paramedic program as well. We have waste that we have to take care of, and our landfill has about 10 years left. We want to certainly guard that. Looking for a new landfill is no party at all. I was there when the one we're presently using was entertained. And so all those needs and the pressures from that, and so consequently with the tax base we have, rural Ontario still has to compete when it comes to contracts. And therefore you take 1,000 people paying millions of dollars versus 1 million people paying the same. Yeah. So therefore the inequity when it comes to rural Ontario. And I think we are here saving farmland. We're feeding the population, but the tax we get off that land certainly isn't comparable, say, to a commercial.
Yeah. For sure. And I know talking with someone from Public Works a little while back about when all these roads were built in Peterborough County, you just put in a culvert as you went, right, to keep the water flow going. Now that can be a $150,000 project between the guardrails and the assessments and everything, just to do, on a back road for basic road maintenance. Right?
Well, a lot of that downloading now, that infrastructure is crumbling, has come to the end of life, and here we are picking up the tab.
Yeah, yeah. Now we're going to shift gears here a little bit. So you've had a whole career outside of politics before this, a long time in healthcare, and as well in farming. I know when we were trying to set up this interview, we were playing phone tag because you were off in the chicken barn, and that's life as a farmer in Peterborough County. What do you see as the pressing issues right now for agriculture? How do we support our family farmers?
Well, I think farming certainly is a business. So inflation has certainly hit farming. We know the cost of fertilizer has gone up, as with our carbon tax for the crops that we put in.
Yep.
And then, of course, when you look at your lines of credit, which you take to put the crops in, that interest rate has increased. So all that cost of production, and then when it isn't in a supply management situation, the farmer isn't sure at the end of the day exactly what they're receiving.
Yeah.
So I think ways of supporting the farmer is acknowledging that there should be a tax break when it comes to carbon tax. That is feeding us until there is an alternative. I certainly recognize that we need to certainly make our carbon footprint smaller.
Yeah.
But the farmer has to have some options. We have to be fed. The other thing is, when you can, shop local. I think that certainly helps. And if you can't shop local, when I think local, I think 100-mile radius. But if you can't do that, then when you are in the grocery store, look at what is produced in Ontario.
Yeah.
So I think those are a couple of ways we can.
And I can't explain it, but once you start buying chicken locally and beef locally, like from the farm, I don't know why it tastes so much better, but it just does.
Well, we appreciate that.
Now, going a little bit more broadly, when you deal with other local businesses outside that agriculture sector, what are the issues that you're hearing about? I know I hear a lot about workforce. There's a big issue, getting that talent to work in these places, but curious to hear what you have to say.
Certainly, it's workforce, but unless we can house people, we can't address the workforce issue. So it's like as if you're in a circle, and that circle is just chasing.
Yeah.
So we need housing. We certainly need health care, because if we increase our population, those are two needs right out of the gate that we have to address. But I think then businesses are looking at, and I didn't mention it with farming, but it's very similar, that inflation, if you look at your own insurance policies, and you look at the increase in insurance, businesses are no different.
Yep.
Farming's no different. I looked at the insurance bill coming in this year, and it's thousands more than last year. And then the other thing is lines of credit. Businesses run on lines of credit, and that increase in interest rate has an impact and has to be passed on.
Yeah. No, for sure. Now, one of the big issues that we like to talk about around employment here, it's maybe a bit of the elephant in the room, is just employment lands. And, we've watched over this last year as there's been a lot of headlines from southwestern Ontario with battery plants and other auto-making facilities being refurbished or new ones being built. And when I talk to my colleagues in other cities, economic development departments, that kind of thing, there's a strong sentiment that, if you build it, they will come, or more so, if you zone it and service it, they'll come, right? And I know, once it's there, the businesses come, they buy it up, and it's pretty much gone. And there's very few options in Eastern Ontario for large manufacturing, and there's certainly a desire within the community here in Peterborough. What's being done to address that locally? And I know you've got that Eastern Ontario perspective as well, so I'd be curious on both of those.
Well, there's several things. Certainly, our official plans certainly look at designations, and we have employment lands. But I think one of the differences here is, compared to Western Ontario, we don't have those vast acreages that Western Ontario. Now, in saying that, we've got great corridors, the 115, 407. Yep. Certainly, those are an advantage to us. But I think, as I say, we work, with the townships. The municipalities do not own vast tracts of land.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be cognizant of the acreages we do have to offer, and the businesses that we can support and retain. So that's what we're focusing on. We're still working on that together. The other thing, too, is the servicing, and we certainly in the Eastern Ontario Warden's Caucus are familiar with communal servicing for water and wastewater. And actually, have a delegation going down to Frontenac County to look over their communal servicing, which comes in quite at a different dollar rate cost-wise than the norm, the in-the-ground infrastructure. So certainly those are some options which can be set up quickly, but it's just getting that in place.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of excitement about finding out more about that.
Yes.
Carolyn Amiot was going on a little bit about that at our four mayors breakfast, right? And love to see more of these options to provide servicing for employment lands here within the county, and whatever options we can create, right?
Well, I think certainly for that commercial side, but I think housing side, and those fit, as we said, together, block by block. With the communal servicing, you can expand, so you can put so many units of the program in, and then as you expand, you add another block of servicing to that existing. So it's kind of like Lego.
Yeah.
And you can build and expand, which I think is so exciting, because pipes in the ground are great, but depending on the diameter of that pipe, that's the volume that you can utilize. Where with this, it's a matter of snapping it on and expanding. Yeah,
you're not spending $15 million on a treatment facility that takes 25 years to pay back, right?
Exactly.
It's a little easier that way. So one last topic here. Right. There's a new strategic plan from the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. And I'm really curious what your vision is for our area and Eastern Ontario more broadly over the next few years.
Well, what the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus has 3 priorities. We've done a strat plan that looks at the next 3 years. So infrastructure was the first thing. We need a new deal in rural Ontario, and we need the government to recognize that we're in the position here to expand. Look outside the GTA. There's lots of opportunities here. But you have to help and invest in order for us to. The second is housing, and we do have our 7-and-7 plan, which is 7,000 of social housing, which will spur off another 21,000 units of additional housing for developers. So we're looking at template model that we can roll out in each municipality. So we looked at what the waiting list was in each area, and our waiting list here certainly, I think, looked about, I want to say about 1,300 units of social housing would come to us, then with a spin-off of 3-to-1 for that in our area. So we're looking at that. Certainly the feds and the province have to come in on that. It has to be a joint effort. The next thing certainly is healthcare as well. So it's infrastructure, healthcare, and then the last one, but certainly not the least at all, is looking for physician recruitment. Our paramedic program, we now fund the community paramedic program and our paramedics, and if we don't fund the community paramedic program, that keeps people in their houses, out of the emerge department. It's a benefit for all. When people look at healthcare, there's 3 things they measure it. Number 1, do you have a family doctor? Number 2, how long do I have to wait in emerge if I have to go? And number 3, if I have a surgery, how long does it take me to have my surgery? So therefore, those are the 3 things. And right now we're facing a crisis here for doctors. So it's all those, so it's infrastructure, housing, and healthcare.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a good conversation. Thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Joel. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.